Hello friends, I made this for. Welcome back, and if this is your first time being here with me, hi, hello, welcome to the space. My name is Lauren, and I am a art ritual facilitator, witchy human, tarot reader, all those different things. And on my channel, I like to dissect what's happening astrologically with our good friend, the tarot. Today, you clicked on this video because you would like some astrological insight into the lunation coming up on the 16th. That is the full moon in Libra. As always, let's get into the meat and potatoes, the most basic aspect of this astrological shift, and just kind of explain why we have a full moon in Libra every time we're in Aries season. For some of you who may or may not know, little baby witches who are still learning their craft, anytime that we have a full moon, it's because the moon and the sun are opposing one another. So if we're looking at opposition on the astrological chart, we will always see that Libra is opposite of Aries. So that is why we have our lunation during Aries season, that lunation of full moon, at least rather, in the sign of Libra. In the past, I've talked a lot about Aries as the emperor, and I have also talked about Libra as being embodied in justice, and I'll try to make sure to link some of those videos at the end. Of course, if you like my Hail Saturn shirt, you can check that out. It's one of my designs. This is an intuitive drawing of Saturn that I did for an amazing astrological book called Planetary Pause. And if you would like to buy this shirt and support the Church of Saturn, our Lord and Savior, Saturn Daddy, check out that link in the box down below, along with my Patreon and all sorts of other things that you can access me through. You know, I don't know, whatever floats your boat, friendos. But let's get into the content here. I have 3 sets of cards. I am using the Golden Art Nouveau Tarot. I have the Luminous Void Tarot, and lastly, the Mary L. Tarot. So these are the 3 decks that I have chosen to utilize as our teachers today. Out of each deck, I pulled the Justice card and the Emperor card. Emperor is the representation of Aries. So that's the astrological connection there. And then Justice is the representation of Libra. So today I'm going to be talking about Libra and Aries thanks to the tarot. Let's just dive in, shall we? I'm going to start by just using the most basic of tarot decks. The Golden Art Nouveau Tarot is a great, very classic representation of these cards. So we're going to use that as our kind of like foundation for where we go today. And I'm going to keep this kind of short, because I don't want us to get lost in the nitty-gritty of these things. I want us to just kind of have some questions to dive into when working with this full moon energy. And one thing, as always, I highly encourage you pull out these cards in your deck to see if there's anything that's coming up for you through the cards that you use. So let's start by talking about Aries. We're in Aries season, so let's first talk about Aries as the Emperor. Now, as I said before, I have deep dives into Aries Emperor energy. I have a lot of information that you can like dive into that a little deeper. So I'll leave that to those videos, but I want to point out some important bits of information about this card. First, we do see that there is the Aries symbol of the ram on this card. We see it here as well above. And we see in this interpretation of the Emperor a very old, a very maybe even withered person who is just feeling tired from their work in the world. As you may or may not know, Aries is the initiator of the astrological wheel. So we can see this as the brave defender in a way, the one who is coming out and making changes for the good of the people, a provider of such. And that's what I want to really harp on here, is that Aries can be the initiator, the spark of the season, but Aries is also a provider. Aries and the Emperor, they are go-getters, not just for themselves, but for those that they love and are in charge of caring for, thinking of parental roles. So instead of putting that role as a masculine thing, because providers can also be women, I like to focus on it as the provider, which is non-gendered. If you've never been here before, I like to de-gender my tarot because it just gets a little bit more expansive when we stop focusing on masculine and feminine. To me, that's just my thing. If it's not your thing, don't keep it. Just take it with what's up or you maybe. Just support yourself. I think gendering is a outdated thing to do. So I see this as the provider. And of course, the provider gets fucking tired. The provider has energy and inspiration to provide for those that they love, but ultimately all things are with a limit. With Aries being the youngest, that can also be an energy that might not know how to maintain. So I like this interpretation of the Emperor because even though it represents a very tired old man, aren't we all just a little tired old men? I am. I embody that. Heavy. So we can see that Aries gives us power, confidence, and that movement to sit on our throne and declare ourselves the one to decide for ourselves, but not without a certain level of responsibility to those around us. So that's just a little overview of Aries. What can we learn? Aries with the sun in Aries and the moon in Libra, it's opposite. It's opposing sign of Libra. This juxtaposed to me is super fascinating. So we have this, and then we have this. Both seem to sit on a certain amount of throne. Both have a certain level of power, prestige, and strength. Justice holds their sword upright because they are channeling that most divine source, that most divine clarity from spirit. So we see that the Emperor has the staff, they're holding a little ball, they're very grounded, they're sitting in their seat of royalty, and we see a very interesting juxtapose here. Instead of a staff pointing downwards, Justice holds their sword to the heavens. Again, reminding us that justice is not moving based on their will alone, but rather is channeling what is truly connection to source. There's something bigger than itself here. They hold the crown on their head as well, but ultimately, is it for just them, or is it for a higher cause? As we'll see in other interpretations of this card, we also see the scales, the balance. Libra moves with an understanding of balance, seeing all sides with a certain level of clarity. Often Libra gets scapegoated as just being uncertain of what they want or what they think. But the truth is, Libra is mobile, just as Justice is. It flows with the state of where there is inequality and where there is privilege. Justice is not just black and white. The reality is, justice is the observation of all things and how they work together in a system, not in necessarily, oh, you killed someone, you're evil. Well, what if it was self-defense? What if there was abuse? What led up to this? Justice is like that. Justice is observing not just the end results, but the parts that get us there. So Libra, very much to me, has that energy of embodying, yes, but also understanding with deep, deep sense of knowing that right and wrong are not black and white. And I think that's an important thing that we as a society have to be reminded of through justice and through Libra, is that the beauty and the power of justice itself is a constantly moving and transformative action. So let's kind of take that same energy and let's look at some more esoteric cards, shall we? And of course, I want to start getting esoteric with a great favorite of mine, the Luminous Void. So the Luminous Void, we have the Emperor again. This one's really interesting to me because we have a staff pointing upwards, which once again feels connected to this sense of authority that comes from beyond, not just from the body of this being, but from a source bigger than itself. Aries believes in taking care of others, and honestly, so does Libra. Libra is all about finding that balance. So if Aries is the strict father, then Libra might be more of the mom that wants to have fun, right? Something like that. Again, I don't like getting super gendered, but if one parent is super strict, the other one might try to be the more fun parent. Fun parent. Fun parent. And also embracing certain beauties in the world, whereas Aries is more action and goal oriented, more focused on pursuing things rather than smelling the roses. So let's look at justice in this card, because again, this one, this Emperor feels very, I know what I must do and I am going towards that goal. Whereas justice is, in this deck, more of what is the liminal space? What does it feel like to be in the in-between? And also, what can it mean to be the liminal space, to be open? We can almost see this form of justice as the sky god or sky goddess that we might see in different sorts of religions or spirituality, holding these scales of justice on one's body, embodying what balance can be through balance of body, mind, and source. And so seeing these two together for this lunation, I take it as an opportunity to step into a role where we can be soft with our authority and soft with our understanding, allowing ourselves to embody that justice is fluid, because true justice requires all aspects to be in accordance, in account. We can't simply see things as either right or wrong. We have to look at the structures that help support or don't support folks, putting people into hard situations and understanding that those circumstances are of important impact on each one of us individually and collectively. So this lunation might be a big moment to acknowledge where there is privilege in the world and where we can support those without it. Again, this comes to me as, this representation of justice comes to me as the embodiment of balance. Like the body is literally in balance, is in a balance to keep these two things balanced. So this might be a good invitation, this moon, to find balance within ourselves, our relationships, our own body, and how we provide for ourselves and others. Again, going back to Aries and the Emperor, the provider, those who care for others. And that might mean that we have to check our own privilege, asking ourselves, how can we care for our community more? How can we care for our friendships more? How can we provide better for ourselves and those around us? So that might be one way of looking at things. Let's look at the last tarot deck, the Marilyn Tarot. So we see the Emperor here, and we see something very interesting. First of all, this Emperor is very, very old. This Emperor is old, has a beard, and I really love a few things that are added. Oh, excuse me. Added to this card to really soften it. First of all, the Emperor is smiling, and I really appreciate that. The Emperor doesn't have to be just Daddy Warbucks trying to take care of everybody and you're just ungrateful, blah, blah, blah. No. The provider of resources, sure, it can be one thing that Emperor really embodies, and Aries is the go-getter that wants to make things possible. But there's also such a playfulness, and we see this in the face of the Emperor of this card, and we also see it in the dragonfly across their face. This Emperor is not just focused on providing the sustenance of life, but rather how do they provide deeply, emotionally, spiritually, and playfully. I also love this staff or sword with the fish ingrained on it. It goes back to this idea of being the leader, taking your school of fish, your fellow little fishies, and pointing them in the right direction, trying to be a good influence, trying to be a good provider of all things, not just monetary or sustenance. And then I want to just end on this one. So this card is the Justice in the Marilyn Tarot, and this feather is a very big symbol in Egyptian culture. So this feather is the feather of Mot, and so I might be mispronouncing that. I've definitely used this Justice card in the past to talk about justice, but this feather is what every soul was weighed against to see if they were good, they were just, and they were righteous or right. So we see this feather, and we can probably assume that this is the goddess Mot, who is sitting there ready to weigh another soul. And so we have to really look at this card as the stillness and power that we see in each one of these justices. We see someone powerful, poised, but soft, embracing their experience as one that has a lot to share, a lot to embody, but regardless must do their due diligence in understanding what justice means on so many levels, embodying that there can be strength and softness, beauty and ugliness. Libra reminds us that we are not just black and white images of the divine. We are the multifaceted. And so we must be constantly reevaluating, weighing the scales of justice, weighing the scales of right and wrong, and reevaluating at all costs so that we can better serve those around us because we better understand the world. So with that said, what are some prompts, or maybe a prompt I would recommend for this lunation, for this full moon? Well, one that I would come up with is focusing on where do you need balance in your life. That is always a good one anytime the moon is opposed to the Aries energy, is where are we spending our energy? And where can we reflect a little better the things that we see in the world, the beauty that we see in the world? How can we create more balance for ourselves, but also balance within our relationships? one thing that might be really important right now is balancing how we pursue our desires in this world. I recommend you write that one down and use that one as your prompt, if nothing else, for this full moon. How can you balance your pursuit of your desires? How can you bring balance to the pursuit of your desires? Again, that might be an avenue, something written like that, something that you can focus on for this lunation. But with that said, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing space. Of course, also thank you to my patrons on Patreon for supporting me and supporting themselves, because on Patreon it is non-toxic art school and a creative coven, where if you haven't joined yet, that link is in the box down below. We are meeting on Monday the 25th for our creative circle, and I am excited to explore our theme for this month, which is release. So if you're interested in diving into some more creative prompts, getting into your creativity with more joy, love, and self-compassion, liberating your creative self, make sure to join us over there. And otherwise, have a beautiful day. Check out the videos popping up around my head. I love you so much. Take care of yourselves, y'all. Bye-bye.